Paolo, I wanted to get you on, as I said to you a couple days ago, to discuss the goalkeeping situation here in Toronto with Joe Bendik and what you've seen in the last number of games from your eyes as a former goalkeeper and now as an instructor, formerly with TFC Academy, now with Vaughan. What are you seeing that concerns you as a former goalie and an instructor now to the youth in Ontario that you would like hopefully for Bendik and the goalkeepers to adjust to with TFC?
You know what? The first thing has to be mentioned is nobody wants to be better than Joe right now. I mean, he's the one that's really feeling the heat, and he puts a lot of pressure on himself. But I've always said to my keepers, I said the highs are never too high and the lows are never too low. And I think what's happening right now, he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to perform and probably do more things than he really needs to. He just needs to get back to some basics. It's like the guy in hockey gripping the stick too hard, and just can't get a point. So I think he needs to step back a little bit, and because he's a very intense guy, he's a very proud guy, a bit aloof. Goalkeepers are a bit strange, and Joe, and a bit odd. And Joe, I think he's no different. But I think people are going to realize we need to relax. I know it's not the start that we were hoping. They do have to make some adjustments. I think they're back four. They need to get some bodies back. And I think they still need a strong center back. I don't think they've ever addressed that number one concern. And I don't think the concern is Joe Bendik here. I think the concern is the back four. And I think Greg Zanny, as a former defender, will even admit that.
Paula, I can agree with you to a certain point. And again, you have played the game as a pro. You coach now youngsters. You would know this better than I. But I said this on Saturday watching the game. Look, I've got a lot of time for Joe Bendik, but there comes a point in time that, yes, we can see that the back is weak. We can see that the defending is not good right now. But also, your keeper's got to make a save to keep your team into the game. One of those goals should have been stopped. And if they were, we're talking about a tie.
Yep, absolutely, Anthony. And as a keeper, you give up one, and you always say to yourself, "Okay, I'm not going to give up that second one." You give up the second, you're not going to give up that third one. And in this case, against Dallas, it would preserve the draw. Absolutely. I think part of the problem is the structure they have there, and what the structure is right now. Joe Bendik, I believe, is at his best when he's challenged day in, day out. And I don't believe there's that challenge for him right now in training. I don't believe there's a strong backup, a really viable backup that's really going to step in and usurp him. In the past they had Stephen Fry. Obviously, I don't need to mention who they brought in last year, and he was at his best in those situations. I think when he's not being pushed day in, day out, I think it's a flawed system, and I think that they spent a lot of money. They've gone out, and I think they need to invest in a strong backup, not because they want to replace Joe Bendik, rather they want to push Joe Bendik, and I think that definitely is gonna help him and ultimately the team.
Let me ask you this, Paolo. You started a lot of games in the Canadian Soccer League with the North York Rockets. You loved being a starter. I remember that, and you never wanted to sit on the bench. But having said that, maybe it is time to sit on the bench, look, analyze, think things over, get a fresh outlook on what you need to do as a goalkeeper the next time you're called upon. Is that something that you think, if you were the head coach, you would take a chance with right now?
You know what? It's funny because I've got many parallels. Not many. I got one parallel in particular to what Joe Bendik's went through. It was one year when I was playing for our good friend Fiorigi Peluso years back, and I was off to a rocky start, and I just felt I was trying to do too much. And we had a nationally televised game on TSN against Montreal, and I was all pumped, even though I wasn't playing very well, and I knew I wasn't. I felt this is my game. I got to turn it around. And Fiorigi turned around and told me, said, "Paulo, you're not playing today. You've got a knee injury." So, I was livid with him at the time, and but it took me some games later to realize what had happened. He was looking to protect me. And what happened, actually, I was livid with him. I sat back. I did watch the game, obviously. The next game, he put me back in against Nova Scotia, if you remember Nova Scotia.
Yep.
And I still remember in that game me making a save off a free kick, and my season turned around. It was that simple.
Paulo, I'll never forget. It seemed like yesterday, but I remember that game in Montreal. We got our lunch handed to us because I was part of that North York team, 4-1. And if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy Buchanan was in goal at that time.
Yeah, very good. Very good, yes. I didn't know the scoreline, I knew Jimmy was in because I was cursing. No, I wasn't. That just
it was 4-1, and if I'm not mistaken, we had that international. I forget if it was the Croatian player with us at that time or the Serbian player that was playing his first or second game. Do you remember that?
Yeah, was it? I can't remember the name. Was it Longarovic or Tomic?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I do remember that. It's all come back to me after all those concussions. I do get back for a while.
Let's get back to discussing the game coming up, Paolo, against Orlando City. Obviously, the stakes are high now. There's a lot of buzz around the city about change. There's a lot of buzz about, the defending and the goalkeeping. So what lightens up a locker room right now during training, away from the media, away from everyone? What lightens up the locker room right now when everyone knows in that locker room that they're up against the wall, that the spotlight is on every one of them? What lightens it up as a former player like you are?
You know what? You just need to step back and say, listen, we're 4 or 5 games into the season. We've got a long way to go here. We don't need to win the playoff race or get in the playoffs tomorrow. There are pros in there. They've got seasoned pros. I mean, you look at the Bradleys and Kubenko and all, and they're going to have to rely on those guys. And those guys are going to step up, and they will step up, and they have stepped up. They will plug the leaky ship. The ship will get righted, and then we're going to be looking back on this and saying, you know what, that was just an aberration to the start of the season. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to go 9, 10 games on the slide, and then all of a sudden you're wishing at the end of the season, if we'd only tied this game here or won this game here. That's the thing. You just want to stop the slide now. Again, I like it to that hockey player gripping the stick. You can't will it that much, that you're going to try and do things that are unnatural to you. And I think that's a bit what Joe Bendik's doing. He's trying to take on a little bit too much. And Joe Bendik's a good MLS goalkeeper. And we know that, and we've seen that in him. And Joe Bendik will be a good MLS goalkeeper again, and it will happen very shortly. It may happen this weekend.
And I don't doubt that for one bit. I just think too much has been given to him too early on by starting every game this season and many last season. I just think, as you said it perfectly, Paolo, he needs a challenge. He needs someone to challenge him in training, pushing him on and on and on. And I mean, let me ask you this as well. Maybe early on in a game, whether it was Dallas, which finished now, he needed to have a PK that he could stop to light him up and get him going. Maybe something is that what he needs to get him and himself going.
He needs a good performance. Absolutely does. And it could be a good moment. It could be a good half. Exactly what you said. And like I said, my story, I still remember it was a free kick. And I remember the save I made. And I remember I surprised myself on it. And you know what? And for me, that was the match that turned it around, turned my season around. And we were fine, And unfortunately, as a pro, you want things to turn around yesterday, And nobody wants it. And fans think, oh, he's not trying. Trust me, they try. All right, professional athletes are professional athletes because they work hard, and you don't get to that level without working hard. Now, sometimes it's up to the coach to pull the reins back a little bit, and like you said, is it time for him to sit? I'm not sold on that yet. I would say let's get another healthy body back in the lineup and see how he performs, and then maybe that's something you want to address down the line. But it's too early right now. I think for my liking anyway. I'd like to give him one more game, maybe even one game at home. Maybe that's going to help. But like I said, Joe Bendik's quality. I know John Conway's working with him now, and I know John for the last few years, and he's quality as well. And they're going to right this ship. I know they will. I'm confident that they will.
And I'm glad you mentioned John Conway because he is quality. He's a good person and a guy that cares. And this is my last question to you, Paolo, before we let you go. After that game, obviously he needs a space and he needs to be away from everyone as a goalkeeper, and he needs to really be left alone. But once the dust is all settled, who talks to him first? Is it John Conway? Is it Greg Vanney? Is it the Captain Bradley? Who goes in there and talks to him?
You know what? As a goalkeeper coach, one of the first things I do with my keepers is before we talk about any technical things, I get them. They need to trust me. So the first conversation has to be John Conway in my eyes, because John Conway and Joe Bendik will have that trust, will have that ability to communicate to one another and be open and honest with one another. When you're getting the coach in there, it's a different level. It's a different level. I really think that conversation has to happen with John and Joe. And and they're going to right this ship. I think Greg Vanney can focus on his strength, and that's the spending in the back four, and let John do his job. And I'm sure we're going to see things turn around in no time.
Quickly, as we close it out, Paolo, I watched the TFC 2 game against the Whitecaps, and I saw a kid that you helped out with, and let's give credit also to Dominic Gentile, a former TFC Academy goalkeeper coach, was Quinlan Roberts. Talk about this young man and his future ahead of him.
You know, he possesses so much potential, so many fine attributes, so much raw power. You know, Stuart Kerr took him under his wing and really spent a lot of hours, invested a lot of hours. The thing with Q right now is he needs to play games. You know, he had a taste of it last year, but he needs to play games. And unfortunately, he's not getting a healthy diet of games. And if he doesn't, I feel that I'm afraid he might stagnate. But, I mean, if he's given the opportunity, I think he does have the potential to become a pro. Is it going to be in Toronto? Perhaps. You know, maybe not, but I do believe that he does possess that ability to one day, you know, play in the MLS. But these are key years that he might be losing if he's not playing on a regular basis.